10 films that were basically shameless remakes of older movies. Never Say Never Again is Thunderball. Sean Connery returned to play James Bond, a role he swore off over a decade earlier, in 1983. Though not considered officially canon, it was an adaptation of the same novel as 1965's Thunderball. The film happened only due to a long-debated fight over the rights to the novel. Author Ian Fleming had worked with Kevin McCrory to turn Thunderball into a film outside of Eon Productions. Even retrospective reviews of Never Say Never Again say it's the worst Bond film ever made. Said reviews came again before the release of Die Another Day. The story is in fact similar to the 1965 adaptation, but the script is too cheeky for its own good. The roommate is single white female. There have been so many copycats of single white female that it's become a running joke, but, much like Disturbia, the roommate is the teen version, stripping the original's explicit sexuality down to tame implications and loading up the soundtrack with young people music. Leighton Meester plays the Jennifer Jason Leigh role, who is so obsessed with roommate Minka Kelly that she frightens away or kills anyone who stands between them and, just like female, dyes her hair to resemble her. Unlike Disturbia, however, the roommate was a box office flop. Heat is LA Takedown. Michael Mann's epic cop criminal drama Heat was a long gestating story that he felt he just didn't get quite right the first time around. After his first success with 1981's Thief, Mann became heavily invested in television, creating and directing the pilots for Miami Vice and the less successful Crime Story. The technical advisor on both films, a retired police officer, related a story about running into a known criminal that he didn't know whether to shoot, arrest, or have a cup of coffee with when NBC commissioned Mann for another television pilot. He took the 180-page script it created based on that story and shot it under the name LA Takedown. Heat and LA Takedown have identical plots, and while the latter is generally well regarded, especially for a TV movie, it lives today in the shadow of its remake. Heat runs the length of the original script, fleshing out characters from the 92-minute original. The Fast and the Furious is Point Break. The Fast and the Furious, in retrospect, is an unlikely film to jumpstart a soon-to-be 8-film franchise. It's a small-scale undercover cop drama, far away from the cars parachuting from airplanes' big-budget extravaganzas it has become. If there's a film that The Fast and the Furious most resembles, it's the 1991 surfer bank robber cult classic Point Break. In a lot of ways, Furious is more Point Break than its 2015 remake. The most significant detail retained in Furious is the clear-cut sexual tension between Paul Walker's cop and Vin Diesel's thrill-seeking criminal, despite there being a female love interest. Such a theme was explored almost tongue-in-cheek in Catherine Bigelow's film, spelling it out in ridiculously obvious ways. There's no room for such cleverness in Furious, which doesn't seem to even realize just how in love with each other Walker and Diesel are. A Perfect Murder is Dial M for Murder. After Andrew Davis brought us The Fugitive, the rare action film nominated for Best Picture, there were high hopes for further projects. Unfortunately, Davis's film turned out to be a fluke, and he returned to his Steven Seagal-esque roots with Drake-like Chain Reaction and Collateral Damage. The last hope that Davis might recover was a loose reimagining of Alfred Hitchcock's Dial M for Murder, though featuring an early role for Viggo Mortensen and a terrific turn from character actor David Suchet. A Perfect Murder is a huge disappointment. Based on the same play as Hitchcock's, the plot is, however, heavily rewritten, rather than clever. It's convoluted. Michael Douglas seems bored as the murderous husband. Assault on Precinct 13 is Rio Bravo. There are few films in John Carpenter's filmography that are not, in one way or another, a remake of Howard Hawks' classic western Rio Bravo. In it, Dean Martin and John Wayne play deputy and sheriff, respectively, of a small town forced to hold off a powerful rancher's violent gang. Carpenter has replayed this siege scenario countless times, in everything from The Fog to Ghosts of Mars. But his second directorial effort, Assault on Precinct 13, is almost a direct translation of the film, replacing the villains with a bloodthirsty LA gang intent on entering the eponymous precinct. 13 didn't fare well with American audiences, but received critical acclaim in Europe, leading Carpenter to further directorial opportunities. The Last House on the Left is the Virgin Spring. You wouldn't expect a gritty, violent exploitation film to be inspired by an Ingmar Bergman film. But Wes Craven's debut borrows heavily from 1960's The Virgin Spring, which won Best Foreign Language Film at the Academy Awards. House simply strips Spring down to its core elements. It follows two teenage girls on their way to a concert who run afoul of a band of outlaws and are subsequently raped and murdered. The outlaws then take shelter in the home of one of the girls' parents, who exact their bloody revenge. Spring, set in medieval Sweden, contains the same details, albeit without a chainsaw. Dead of Winter is My Name is Julia Ross. Arthur Penn's little-remembered 1987 thriller Dead of Winter is notable for an eccentrically creepy performance from Roddy McDowall and yet another villainous turn from Lethal Weapon 2's Jan. Diplomatic Immunity, Rubes. The plot concerns a young actress, Mary Steenburgen, who takes a mysterious gig at a remote, snowed-in mansion, but soon realizes her hosts have much more sinister reasons for prolonging her stay. The 1945 noir My Name is Julia Ross, based on Anthony Gilbert's novel The Woman in Red, hews much more closely to the novel. Winter's major changes include the ambiguous, probably homosexual relationship between McDowall's assistant character and Rubes, and the actress concept. The original film and novel use the ruse of a live-in personal assistant. Also, like so many loose remakes, the setting has been transplanted from London to America. Drag Me to Hell is Night of the Demon. Sam Raimi's long-awaited return to the horror genre contains every hallmark of his early work. The horror is at once gruesome and absurdly funny, like The Three Stooges if their bits featured bloodshed. For PG-13 horror, Drag Me to Hell pushes the limitations of its rating to every possible extreme, featuring numerous gross-out bits and plenty of gore. It also contains numerous elements that mirror Jacques Tourneur's 1957 British film Night of the Demon, or Curse of the Demon, where Hell's banker Alison Lohman wrongs a gypsy who curses her. Demon follows a psychiatrist investigating a satanic cult. Both characters are subject to a curse transmitted through an object that will kill them in 3 days. The only way to escape both curses is to transfer the object to another person, damning them instead. Both feature an intense, in Hell's case, also hysterical, seance scene and, finally, both climax at a train station. Countless films and TV shows are Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Jack Finney's science fiction novel The Body Snatchers, first serialized in Collier's in 1955, has itself been adapted 4 times theatrically, the first, released a year after publication, may be the most faithful, though 1978's updated version with Donald Sutherland and Jeff Goldblum only changes the setting from a small town to San Francisco. 1993's Body Snatchers changes the setting once again to a military base, and the less we talk about 2005's The Invasion, the better. The Body Snatchers, it seems, is one of the few works always relevant enough for a remake or alteration every generation. The underlying fear of losing one's humanity, or Capgras delusion, can be applied to any period in history, and since the 50s, the allegory has been hitched to communism, allegedly, suburbia. The 70s, me generation, the US government, the military, high school, the faculty, childhood, invaders from Mars, marriage, I married a monster from outer space, and countless others. It even found its place in video game history with the Sega Genesis, Super NES game Zombies at My Neighbors. With the newly changing political climate, one can surely expect another version soon enough.